Hey guys, Chicky Domain, Deboo.com with a Deboo.com Surf Forecast Update. This forecast update effective around 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, June 13th, 2017. And okay guys, lots to talk about in this update. We'll hope you'll stay tuned in for all of it. There is a couple of things that we're watching. We're watching the northern Gulf of Mexico in here, and a little area of spin developed yesterday afternoon just south of the Florida-Alabama border in here. We'll show you that here in just a few moments. The East Pacific has now gone up on the Atlantic 3-1 with the development of Calvin yesterday. Tropical Storm Calvin in here spinning up. Now, we're now in the real-time phase of a possible Gulf of Mexico low or Bay of Campeche. Early on last week, models were showing a different solution and were showing a hooking pattern coming in with the front picking it up and then hooking it up in here into the Florida Panhandle. Now the pattern has now shifted, and now it's a tropical wave moving this way off towards the west, area of spin getting down in here towards Costa Rica, spinning up in here towards the Gulf of Honduras, and then off in here towards the Bay of Campeche. If you didn't get a chance to see our website update yesterday, Deboo.com, go read our text. It's full definition of what we call is rounding the corner versus the hooking pattern. We explained that yesterday in yesterday's update. And but we're also watching for surfers these two areas of spin yesterday, one over Bermuda and one over here north of Puerto Rico. If you follow us on our social feeds, you probably saw that post. Now, what the models have now switched to is an omega high dropping into the Atlantic and becoming the dominant feature out here. We'll show you that in the latest model runs here in just a few moments, but this means that there's likely going to be an extended period of rideable surf coming in here to the Atlantic as high pressure sits out here and spins. Now, we also can get some east-southeast enhancement as two tropical waves are going to be moving off the African coast and heading this way. Now, the GFS and the Euro have two different solutions on these two African waves. The Euro takes it, dive bombs it in here through the East Caribbean, where the easterly trades basically destroy it. The GFS wants to lift up into here, and it's that northern extension of the tropical wave that can enhance the pressure gradient in here, and then that with a combination of the high increase more east-southeast flow. So there is the possibility of some surf alert coming up, but right now Atlantic surfers, it looks like high pressure to dominate and an extended period of rideable surf coming. Now, this omega high that we're talking about, for those who are not surfers that are followers, this is what's going to give the eventual outcome of what spins up in here. Because that omega high comes in here, takes control, it forces that way. Here's that area in the northern Gulf of Mexico. Again, yesterday, and you can still see it, here's the remnants of that little cyclonic spin that developed yesterday. It was up in here yesterday, and overnight it's dropped into here. When it was over here yesterday, if you go back and look at longer loops, you'll see that about 4 or 5 o'clock, convection exploded over the top of it. But also notice down in here off the western tip of Cuba, you notice how you've got some curvature like this and a little spin, upper level trough in here. The reason why we point this out is that this is the time of year that you can get homegrown development. We look at Climo in the second week of June, and we see that the northern Gulf of Mexico is kind of favorable, or an area where something could develop. And the typical track off to the right or off to the left or somewhere right in here. But subscribers are reminded that weak areas of low pressure, regardless of whether or not something develops into an organized system, gets a name, or becomes a hurricane, which none of that is going to appear here, is that weak areas of low pressure are known to produce copious amounts of rain. Back in August 2016, an area of low pressure developed just like this, and it sat here for days, dumping copious amounts of rain, historic flooding in here to Louisiana, I think, and all the way into Mississippi. So it's just something that we're keeping an eye on. Follow us on our social feeds for updates on that. If something significant happens, we'll come back to the website and update you on that as well. The other thing that we're going to be watching is that this is the area where the models are showing that an area of low pressure is going to develop. This is in the Gulf of Honduras right here, Bay of Campeche in here. You can see the east-southeast trades working in here, and then the upper level flow is this way. So the idea is that low pressure rounds the corner right in here, and then once it gets in here, it gets a chance to spin up, and then because of that high pressure building out here in the Atlantic, it continues to push it off into Mexico. Taking a look at the latest run of the GFS, and keeping in mind what we just mentioned about the area up in here into the northern Gulf of Mexico, guys, and although we may not see tropical cyclone development because models have trended weaker on this area over here in the Bay of Campeche, this omega high that the models are showing that's going to move out here to the Atlantic is going to take everything that's moving off Africa, shove it in the intertropical convergence zone, and then when it gets over here to Central America, it'll start to bend up towards Texas. And so what this is telling us is that if this high pressure takes in and takes control and parks here, an extreme amount of precipitation is going to be moving in here across the northern tier of South America in here towards Central America and Mexico. We'll advance the model for you now. This is going into 5 days, and at about 5 days, you'll see that low pressure begins to develop in here towards the Gulf of Honduras. Here's that high pressure. Now, I wanted to go back. Stop. Let me go back. There's 2 areas of spin here over Bermuda, and one that was over here north of Puerto Rico. If you follow us on our social feeds, we had posted about that. And so what's going to end up happening is these are going to get drug out, and 2 areas of low pressure are going to develop on the tail end of that. And then here comes this omega high. So surfers, this gets some northeast gradient coming this way. At the same time, the east-southeast gradient. Here comes those northern extensions of the tropical wave in here, and then here comes low pressure development in the Gulf of Honduras. This is going into day 7, and then into the Bay of Campeche. Gulf of Mexico surfers, this is all fetch going to be aimed out here towards Texas, but there is that southeast gap swell, Yucatan gap swell, that starts to open up for the Florida panhandle in here. West Florida, don't think you're going to get anything off this unless this can get up in here and then kick around a background swell for you. Advance the model some more for you, and those 2 areas of low pressure have now combined into a little weak 1016 millibar. So again, this is putting a little northeast pinch in the gradient right here, and notice how this drops down just a little bit, and then this gets closer. Here's where it sets up possible surf alert in here for portions of the U.S. East Coast, and as we advance the model, this goes past 10 days, but I want to take it to 14. And it's not that the model is not going to change between now and the next several days. It's the idea of what the model is suggesting. And as we go into day 14, look at all of these weak areas of low pressure that develop around the rim in here through Central America. That's copious amounts of rain, guys. And the people in Central America and up in here may need our help, because this is going to be lots of flash flooding, mudslides, just heavy, heavy rain. So keep that in mind as we go through the forecast coming up next week. This is the latest run of the Euro. And again, the Euro also showing the omega high building in here at 5 days, 1034 millibar high. So guys, here's where this extended period of east-southeast wind swell comes up into the Atlantic. And then here's that northern extension. Now we'll watch that as the Euro dives it into the Eastern Caribbean and then eventually washes it out and then buries that area of low pressure that develops over here in the Gulf of Honduras over in the western Bay of Campeche. That's all we got for you for now, guys. Stay tuned for the next update.